Hope you can hear me. It's Dr. William Bird here, and welcome to Chat with the GP. Should I worry about my headaches? So we've got 10 minutes to go through the worries about headaches. So the question is, and what I get asked all the time, people worried about, could it be a brain tumor? Have I got something to worry about? Is something happening which is really concerning, or is it just a normal tension headache? And that's really what I want to go through today. So let's go straight through. So you have a headache. Okay, so the first question I'll be saying is, when did it start? So if something has been just in the last day or two, you don't need to worry a bit. But if it's been going on for several months and been getting a bit worse, that would be a problem. Likewise, how long has it been? Have you had this before? If you've had this before, then this is something which you probably don't need to worry about because it's happened and it's gone away again, and then it's come back and you know what it is. If it's something which is completely new, then obviously we'll try to again find out, where is it? Is it on one side of your head? If it is, that's most likely to be a migraine. If it's in the back of the head, then that's more likely to be posture. And you may find that you need to kind of improve your kind of posture a bit, particularly in the back of the neck. If it's actually in the behind the eyes, that's a tension headache. And a tension headache goes round the head. It's actually kind of wraps around the head. And it's something which actually you feel like a tight band. And that's what the tension headache, that's the normal headache that often happens. If you feel that your vision is slightly zigzaggy or flashing lights, that's often about a migraine as well. So I'll be asking all these questions to the GP. Can you move your neck okay? If you can, then you're okay. If you can't, then that may be more to do with something in the back of the neck for either posture, or it could be more to do with meningitis if you've got a high temperature. If you've got confusion, that's a bit more of a worry. If it wakes you up in the morning at about 3 o'clock in the morning, that's also a bit of a worry because that means it could be raised pressure. But most people have a headache that comes on, it builds up during the day, it's worse as you go to bed or in the evening. You really feel it's wrapping around your head, and you feel that is just makes you feel a bit sick. You can't concentrate, you can't do your work. That is a tension headache. And we're going to go through what those features are. So the things that I'd be worried about is a new headache if you're older and you've never had it before. If you find your balance is a little bit of a problem, stumbling, if it's progressively getting worse. So that really means that it started off perhaps a few weeks ago, but now it's building up and getting a bit worse. And that daily worsening is something I'll be more consumed about. Confusion, of course, anything where there's confusion which is unlike you, associated with the headache, again, I'd want you to see a GP straight away. Any movement of the head as well. So most tension headaches got nothing wrong about moving at all, but if it moves, it could be about raised intracranial pressure. If you have a very high temperature, well, you might have flu and you might have sinuses, and that is obviously completely normal. But a high temperature and a headache, particularly in the back of the head, is a problem. And neck pain and stiffness, likewise with the high temperature. Now, this waking up in the night, in the morning, means often pressure could be building up. So one that wakes you up at about 5 or 6 in the morning and then slowly gets better during the day, again, is more of a concern. Clearly loss of vision. Don't forget, in migraines, you get this blur, zigzaggy, you get this kind of flashing lights, you get lots of what's called the aura. And clearly, if you've had a recent head injury, well, you might have concussion, and that could stay for weeks, sometimes even months, giving a headache. But it is something that, obviously, if a headache is getting worse, we don't want to check that there's no bleeding. So that may think, oh my goodness, loads of things there that I'm really worried about. But actually, these are quite very rare. And as a GP, I would hardly ever see these things at all. What I see is the tension headache. And that tension headache is one where it comes on, it can either be episodic or chronic. Episodic is just perhaps less than 15 times a month, chronic when it's more than 15 times a month. And it's a band round the head, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Infections, common cold, influenza, you get a headache. Yeah, you'd know that, that's your blocked sinuses. The migraines we'll talk about separately. And then you may find it in the night, your dentist is saying you're grinding your teeth, and the tense muscles can actually help create the muscles that come to kind of wrap around your head and make it very, very kind of tight, and they don't relax. So teeth grinding in the night can lead to headaches in the daytime. And then the easy one, the dehydration, and that's one that's often forgotten. It could just be that you're not drinking enough. And then, of course, the cells get a little bit smaller and they start to cause problems. I usually get people who said, oh, I've got a really bad headache. First thing I did was go to the optician. It's so rarely eye strain. I'm sorry, but yes, someone will say, yes, it is. But everyone comes with their shiny new glasses, and actually it isn't that. So the first thing perhaps we think about, it's to do with our blood pressure going up, or it's about eye strain, and neither are a problem. So let's have a look at that tension headache. The really episodic ones are, just 1 or 2 days a month, or just 1 day a month. 86% of the population have that. You get the frequent ones that's up to 14 days, and then it's this chronic ones of more than 15 days a month. That's almost every other day. 3% of the population. That's where it really becomes a problem. You feel like these clouds are wrapping around you. You can't concentrate on your work. And it tends to be around both sides of the head. You move around and it makes no difference, unlike a migraine. And if you press on the sides of your head, and particularly in the muscles around there, you'll feel it making the pain worse. Now, that's reassuring, because if you press on it and it hurts, it means it can't be in the head. It can't be on the other side of the skull. It tends to build up tension worse as the day goes on. Do you remember I mentioned about being worse in the morning and getting better? That's something more alarming. But if it builds up during the day, that's tension headache. And stress, tiredness comes on at weekends when you relax. Depression, poor sleep, all of these can cause tension headache. So really common, really, really common. And that's what most people seem to be having. So the muscles that I mentioned around the scalp on the outside tend to be the main cause, but there's also something going on in the brain where a normal amount of pain becomes suddenly amplified. And that's called a kind of pain sensitivity increase. You get it in something called fibromyalgia. So the normal pain isn't normal anymore, it's worse. And increased inflammation as well. So first thing, so easy, drink more water. Sometimes I've got patients who say that sorted it all out. Reduce your caffeine, increase activity. Don't have lines. Lines can actually increase the risk of headaches in the weekends particularly. Any relaxation to get those muscles down during the week, not just wait for the weekend. Acupuncture can do it. And don't forget, food can have a big impact on headaches. Certainly from kind of, you feel you've been a little bit kind of allergic to some things like taurine, which is found in pickled herrings, believe it or not. Cheese can do it, red wine can do it, but also sugar can do it as well. And your up and down of your insulin, your sugar, can make a real problem. So the treatment for a tension headache is aspirin, normally about 300 milligrams or 600. And that NNT is numbers needed to treat. So you need to treat 6 people in order for one of them to get better on aspirin. So you can see it's not 100%. So I need to treat paracetamol. You have to treat 22 people for it to work. So it's not a done deal. Ibuprofen's 14. When you add caffeine, it's a little bit better. That's 6. Amitriptyline, that also can make it can help prevention. It's a very low dose, but I still need to treat 12 people to get one person feeling better. And then there's other antidepressant there. So these are low dose, and you take them every night, and they can help prevent these tension headaches by relaxation. Other triggers are really fascinating. I'll spend a whole session on this. The weather, the change in weather. Some people are really sensitive. As I said about weekends, the brain freeze. You have cold ice cream and suddenly your headache kind of feels really bad. Sex, unfortunately, for some people can be a real problem. Suddenly a headache comes. We hear about that prevention, but this can happen during sex, and sudden big thunderclap headache, as it's called. It's completely harmless, but obviously very debilitating. Your posture, food and alcohol, as I mentioned, cheese, screens, and overuse of paracetamol, and any painkillers, and of course, coming off caffeine can cause and trigger headaches. So the migraines are different. Mostly women, more than men, and some sufferers go on to having it almost every day, 15 per month, really bad, and then they can revert back again. It tends to be on one side and it lasts from anything from about 4 hours to 72 hours. So it is quite common and it is very debilitating. It's associated with nausea and difficulty in seeing things. You literally can't work. You're in a darkened room. Paracetamol, can have a 20% impact. That's 1 in 5. Aspirin is 3 tablets, 900 milligrams is a recommended dose, and that can really, again, have an impact of 20%. And don't forget this caffeine with paracetamol and aspirin can add a little bit for some people. Then you've got the specialist things like sumatriptan and all the triptans going through, and ergot, which is actually the old-fashioned one, which constricts the blood vessels. That means that what is happening is the blood vessels are opening up, causing pain in your head, and the ergot actually narrows it down again and helps the pain disappear. There are some other causes of headache. Cluster headache is meant to be the worst pain in the world, where people literally hit their head against the wall. It's so bad. On one side, their eyes stream, their nose streams as well. They get red eye, and it unfortunately goes into these clusters of a few days, and then there's nothing for months. Funny enough, 100% oxygen is a cause. It's very like migraines. A cough headache, when you're coughing, it comes on. Giant cell arthritis is on your temple, and it's older people. And then I'm not going to go through all of these here, but just remember that if you're in a rented accommodation and you've got heating, which may not be perfect, carbon monoxide can actually increase, and only symptom you get is headaches. So just be aware, and also be aware of withdrawing from alcohol, painkillers, and caffeine. So that's why you tend to love our first coffee, because we're withdrawing. And if you don't have your coffee, you start to feel a bit headachy and a bit bad. So just as a summary, most headaches are tension headaches. They're due to stress, dehydration, and tiredness. But there are some headaches which you just need to be aware of. As a GP, they are so rare. I will see those perhaps once or twice in my entire career, some of them, but they are there. And I think the biggest thing I'd be worried about is if you start to lose your concentration, or more confusion, or you become to stumble a bit. That may be the one thing to look out for. But in general, they are horrible things to have, debilitating. Don't overdo the medication. Get out and be active. Make sure you're eating a balanced diet. Make sure you're drinking plenty, and make sure you're enjoying yourself and coping with the stress. And hopefully you'll get on top of them. Hope that's okay. Thanks very much indeed. And thank you for listening. It's really good to have you with me, and look forward to seeing you next week.